Hello, and welcome to Chapter 4 of the Bankers Leadership Series in association with Swift on constructing the future of payments. In this chapter, we're discussing the importance of a resilient and secure infrastructure. Paul, I was going to turn to you first. How can the payments industry really ensure a secure ecosystem?
I mean, it's something that we worry about every day. I mean, ourselves and the bank that run the key systems today are key crucial requirements to be robust and resilient at all times, and whatever we do to change obviously brings risks. So we are obsessed with making sure we move from where we are today to the future in a way that's seamless and secure, and it really in the background for consumers to make sure that they can rely on the systems every day. But the thing is really about customers and consumers. It's what do they want from these systems, and when we look at the demand in the future and we look at things like Internet of Things or the move from card transactions to bank transactions, it's understanding the demand, the timing of that demand, the velocity of that demand in the future that we need to build into the resilience expectations for the future. So the ability to build elasticity into our systems, to build more ability to react to customer requirements and demand changes in the market are really going to drive us to build resilience at the core and build a system that starts to react to the way the market wants to use it. In the past, we've often built it to what the banks wanted, not necessarily what the customers wanted. And I think that chain all the way through is quite a change. Our view to look to the customer outcome as opposed to just the first step along the chain will allow us to design robustness and resilience in from day one for any new architecture.
From Swift's perspective, how do you really ensure a secure ecosystem going forwards?
At Swift, we take three kind of core principles very, very seriously, and we talk about that as our core: security, safety and reliability. And in previous chapters we spent a lot of time thinking about innovation and the development of those services, but we firmly believe that that ecosystem, those services, can only be developed and people will only come back and use you as a platform if you're being built from a resilient, safe and secure core. So we spend a lot of time investing in resiliency, in redundancy and all the other things that you'd expect, but we also think about the way in which we deploy our products and services. More recently, people would have seen the customer security program that Swift, working with our 12,000 connected participants, have rolled out. And 3 years into that program, there are three key pillars to that, and it's you as a connected participant, your role as a counterparty and the sharing of that risk information, and also the due diligence that comes from that. And we're seeing that program mature, we're seeing that baseline level of security being embedded, and we're seeing people use that risk due diligence information when they are taking business decisions.
I've always instilled in all our engineering teams, right, when we started ClearBank and the journey with rtgs.global, is that actually we call them three fundamentals. I call them three fundamentals, because resiliency becomes a big bucket. What does resiliency actually mean? You need to eat, sleep and breathe security, availability and performance. That's actually what resilience comes down to, right? Security is I don't want anybody else to be accessing my data or my systems at any particular point except me. The availability point is you need to be up 24/7. That's just the benchmark. It's not that's an aspiration. That's the lowest. That's the benchmark, right? And then the performance aspect, which is something that we all kind of overlook kind of a lot when we talk about resilience, is there's no point in me being secure and available if actually I get swamped with transactions and I can't actually start delivering them in a timely fashion. So the elasticity point is completely spot on. How do you deliver that across everything? And what's really interesting is when you have like a board talking about this sort of thing, right down to your lowest level junior engineer, they need to be on the same page and understand that, because it's actually the engineers at that particular point who start making decisions on how they implement something based around those fundamentals, then you're going to be okay. If they're not, then it doesn't matter what decisions you make at the top. If it hasn't permeated up and down, you end up in an ecosystem that could actually be open to threats. When I look at footprints that we have around there in banking specifically, there's so many handoffs between systems. Even when you look at open banking flowing into the banks themselves.
And that for me is absolutely the case. And great to hear Vikesh and Paul talking about this. It's the classic tension, isn't it? As you open up the ecosystem to more, to more parties coming in, as you look at the way that the fraudsters are operating, and within that ecosystem, we need to be very clear where those points of potential points of failure are, and we need to make sure that they're there, and we need to understand where the liability is as well. And I'm not sure we've got that final model yet.
I must say, as a central bank, it's fantastic that debates about resiliency and safety are being led more by the private sector. Something else we've done at the bank in 2017, we actually became the operator of the CHAP system, and that meant we could really look at this end-to-end resilience. We can look at what's going on in RTGS, we can look at CHAPs, the direct participants there, but also taking it that step further to look at the vendors. I think it's getting that chain all the way through that's really important.
But that end-to-end thing is crucial, because we talked earlier about the ecosystems evolving today. We're seeing more aggregators, we're seeing more people sell payment software as a service. You know, we need to be looking at where there's concentrations of that activity, because it starts to create a different risk profile. And our job as Payment UK is to be the systemic risk manager for this ecosystem. We need to understand what's coming at the central infrastructure. And much of it is outside of our control, because it's not direct participants, it's indirect participants, it's other vendors. But our job as a guardian is to try and guide them to do it in a way that uses the standards to the optimum, but also make sure we don't concentrate risk in areas that would create a bubble on an end-to-end basis. So that's why it's so crucial that now that we've put the retail schemes together, we start to talk to our participants and look all the way through the lens, all the way throughout to consumers and to new payment service providers and new vendors, to be really clear how that's coming through, because that resilience is not just about the fortifications around clearing and settlement, it runs all the way through that process.
Well, thank you very much. In the final chapter, we're going to look at encouraging innovation for payments in the future.